Hello everyone. Today I want to talk to you about a topic that many people are curious about but are too embarrassed to talk about: anal sex. In order to find out what happened to those girls who agreed to their boyfriend's request, I interviewed several sisters who had personal experience and shared it with you. Let me talk about myself first. The first time my boyfriend asked me to do this, I was completely stunned. We were getting intimate at the time, and he suddenly came up with this idea, and my mind exploded with a buzz. What kind of weird request is this? But to be honest, I am shy and embarrassed to refuse directly, so I agreed without thinking. As a result, the process was simply a nightmare. The pain is really indescribable, like a fire burning in my body, and it hurts so much that I break out in cold sweats. After it was over, I was furious, and I was furious at my boyfriend, scaring him so much that he dared not breathe, and kept apologizing. Since then, I have developed a serious fear of sex, and cracks have appeared in our relationship. Fortunately, we communicated well later, and he never dared to ask for it again, and the relationship was slowly restored. Let me tell you about my best friend Zhao Ai's experience. Her boyfriend also asked for it out of the blue, and Zhao Ai agreed without thinking. What happened? The process was even worse than mine. After the end, she was furious and scolded her boyfriend. What's more terrible is that she had a shadow on her sex life for a long time afterwards, and the relationship between the two became very tense. But fortunately, they solved the problem through communication in the end. And Zhao Li, she is a relatively open-minded person. After a few years of marriage, life was a bit dull. When her husband asked for this, she hesitated and agreed. But at that time, she found that she couldn't stand it at all. What's worse, she started to be constipated for several days after the incident, and rolled on the bed in pain. She went to the hospital for a checkup, and the doctor said that it was because anal sex damaged the muscles and nerves around the anus, and the defecation function was affected. Zhao Li regretted it to death and swore to her husband that she would never play this dangerous game again. The severe pain caused her to collapse, and she also had a serious constipation problem afterwards. What's more terrible is that the doctor found that the muscles and nerves around the anus were damaged. Thinking about it now is scary. Zhao Li said that during that period, she had a serious fear of sex life, and the relationship between the two became very tense. Fortunately, they communicated well later, and her husband never dared to ask for this again. There is another best friend of mine, Zhang Mei, whose experience is even more distressing. She and her boyfriend were in a long-distance relationship, and they finally met once, and her boyfriend made this request. Zhang Mei gritted her teeth and agreed, thinking that it's not easy to get together. As a result, a sharp pain came, and then bleeding. The two were so scared that their faces turned pale, and they hurried to the hospital for examination. The doctor said that it was an anal tear and needed stitches. During the days in the hospital, Zhang Mei couldn't stop crying because of the pain, and her boyfriend regretted it next to her. This incident was a great blow to Zhang Mei, and she even began to doubt whether her boyfriend really cared about her. Speaking of my cousin Zhao Qing, she has been married for more than 10 years, and her husband suddenly made this request one day. Sister Zhao Qing was determined not to agree at first, but she finally gave in after her husband's constant persuasion. However, Sister Zhao Qing was very smart. She did a lot of homework in advance. She searched online, bought special lubricants, and prepared herself mentally. Although she was still a little uncomfortable during the process, Her situation was much better than that of the previous sisters. However, Sister Zhao Qing also made it clear that she would never try it a second time because it violated her normal concept. You see, if you really want to try this special behavior, you must be prepared in advance. For example, lubricants can really reduce pain to a certain extent and reduce the risk of injury. Finally, let me talk about my cousin Zhao Xiao. She and her boyfriend are both people who seek excitement, so when her boyfriend made this request, Zhao Xiao agreed very readily. She and her boyfriend are both thrill seekers. They also know that this is risky. Although they watched a lot of popular science videos in advance and made a lot of preparations, they were still injured in the process. Although the injury was not serious, Zhao Xiao felt that she was not well prepared. Later, she and her boyfriend discussed it and decided to return to normal married life. What made me laugh and cry the most was Wai Wei. She and her husband had just married, and when her husband made this request, she actually thought it was a normal thing between husband and wife. As a result, she was in so much pain that she scolded her husband after the end. Only then did her husband realize that he had made a big mistake and quickly popularized the relevant knowledge to Wai Wei. The experience of my other best friend Zhao Qing is even more distressing. She has been with her boyfriend for many years and has always had a good relationship. When her boyfriend made this request, she was particularly resistant in her heart, but she still tried it to satisfy his curiosity. As a result, Zhao Qing felt that her dignity was trampled on during the process, and she couldn't accept it psychologically. Later, after a long talk, her boyfriend finally realized his mistake and promised not to make this request again. My cousin Aoming is very tough. When her husband proposed this request, she directly refused. Her husband did not give up and kept pestering her, so she carefully analyzed the harm of this behavior with her husband, from physical health to psychological impact. And the analysis was very logical. After listening to her, her husband finally gave up the idea. The one who impressed me the most was Zhao Yuanyuan. She and her boyfriend got infected after trying it. Zhao Yuanyuan said it might be because of the poor hygiene. After all, there are a lot of bacteria around the anus. She went to the hospital for a long time, spent a lot of money, and suffered a lot. Now she regrets it very much, saying that she would not be so impulsive if she had known earlier. There is also Zhaoling. After she and her husband tried it, the relationship between the two became very subtle. Zhaoling has always had a knot in her heart, and her husband also felt guilty for seeing her uncomfortable. Although the relationship was slowly restored through communication in the end, the process was really too painful. What I admire most is my cousin Aoming. When her husband made this request, she directly refused. Her husband did not give up and kept pestering her, so she seriously analyzed the harm of this behavior with her husband, from physical health to psychological impact. After listening to her, her husband finally gave up the idea. Through these experiences, I want to tell my sisters, first, never force yourself to satisfy the other person's whim. Second, hygiene is really important. There are a lot of bacteria around the anus, and if you don't pay attention to cleaning, the risk of infection is very high. Third, you must communicate honestly when you encounter problems. There is nothing that cannot be said between husband and wife. From the experience of us sisters, it is really important to bravely say no when facing unreasonable requests from your partner. You are the master of your body, and you have the right to refuse anything that makes you uncomfortable. I hope my sharing can give you some inspiration. Remember, A healthy sex life must be based on mutual consent, respect, and full understanding. Okay, today's sharing ends here. Sisters are welcome to leave a message in the comment area to discuss and tell us what you think. See you next time. Bye.